Well, everyone, Roy and Anna here. We decided to go on a trip. Well, okay, maybe not a plane trip, but we're going to head back to Queenston Heights, which is near Niagara on the lake, for a day at the park. As you can see, the weather forecast was perfect. They said it would be bright and sunny all day. Maybe not. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Roy here, Roy and Anna. We made it to Queenston Heights. The weather has turned quite nice. It's about 27, 28 Celsius. Feels about 34 with the humidity. So out in the sun, it's quite hot. So in the background here, this big statue, that's the Brock Monument. And that's to honor the death of General Brock in the Battle of Queenston Heights in 1812. So I thought what we would do as part of today is A, show you the park, show you the beautiful flowers, but also talk a bit about the battle. Not too long. I think you might enjoy it, find it interesting. Anyways, why don't you come along with me? So here's the Brock Monument. Oh, giant hawk. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, floating around. I don't know if it's open today, but if you're healthy and not claustrophobic, you can climb up to the top, almost to the top, and there's some small portals to look out. Gets you a pretty nice view. So if you're ambitious, go for it. So let's set the stage, shall we? Below us is the Niagara River, and it follows out in about another 8 or 10 kilometers to Niagara on the lake, and then Lake Ontario off in the distance. On this side over here is Lewiston, USA. And down below here, at the bottom of this hill, is Queenston. We're actually on Queenston Heights because it's a height. So this is actually the start of the Niagara escarpment. It goes all the way up to the Lake Huron, one of those lakes, one of those superior lakes. So the War of 1812 comes along, and quite frankly, it's a stupid war. It never should have happened. Stubborn people on both sides, and it's one of those wars that never should have taken place, and dragged on for a couple of years, too long, but be what you may. So anyways, as part of this, the Americans decided that they were going to need to take Niagara. And the ideal place to do control the area was an old adage in warfare: whoever owns the high ground controls the territory, something like that. And Queenston Heights was the high ground. So in July of something, maybe July, August, somewhere around there, June, July, August of 1812, 3,500 Americans decided that they were ordered to take the Heights. The Canadians had, not the Canadians, but the British at the time, they had about 1,200 soldiers. And they were spread out all the way from Fort George over in Niagara on the lake, all the way up this way in small groups. So one night in June, July, somewhere around there, 1812, the Americans started rowing across the river in Lewiston to this side. Now they didn't have enough boats to carry everybody, so they had to ferry back and forth. A bunch of them got to this side, including their General Van der Rohen, something like that, and got to this side where they met up with maybe 70, 80 British troops. There was a short back and forth. The American general was seriously injured. I think he was hit 5 or 6 times. Not killed, surprisingly enough, and along with a bunch of others. It was a bit of a draw, and so the Americans then started to climb up this hill to here, to get up this way. And meanwhile, the ferries were going back and forth until at one point the militia who were on the other side started to see how many casualties there were and decided, maybe not, I think I'll go back to me farm. And so a number of them refused to cross over, be that as it may. People are consolidating. It was a hot mess, and I won't go through all the descriptions, but they came up, and a little bit over there, we'll get up close, is where the Americans kind of took mini fortress in a redoubt. General Brock, who is in Fort George in Niagara on the lake, he heard the sound of the rifles going off, or actually I guess it was more muskets back then, and got on his horse and rushed over. Got here with a number of his troops and decided to attack the redoubt. So if I have it right, this is the redoubt. And it's not at all. It's a pool, of course. But I guess originally it was a fort, believe it or not. Fort Drummond. Well, let's go and see if we can find the real redoubt. As part of the battle, a number of native Mohawks also took part and made quite a good contribution. John Norton and John Brant, to the Mohawk natives. How they got the names Norton and Brant, I'm not quite sure, but they were able to bring a great deal of pressure on the Americans from the south and the west, which helped turn the tide of the battle. Mohawk Oneida. Onondaga. I'm probably doing a terrible job with the names. Cayuga. Seneca. Tuscarora. So this is roughly the battlefield here. The monument is over this way. General Brock, who had been in his Fort George at Niagara-on-the-Lake and had heard the sound of the muskets going off, got on his horse, rushed up this way, and gathered a bunch of men and started to attack the Americans, who were, sorry to say, basically where the washroom is now in that general area, and was promptly killed. Boom. So a couple more senior officers, McDonnell, attacked. He was also killed, and he's also buried underneath the Brock Monument, as is General Brock. And another general attacked and basically held them at bay, the Americans at bay for a while. In the meantime, Americans were still being ferried across the river, and over on that side, just past those cars, is almost a steep cliff down to the Niagara River. And having said that, their lot still is covered with trees and shrubs, so it's climbable. People could grab on and hold up. So the Americans were landing there, climbing up the hill, and they were building forces. Now, in the meantime, while the British were holding here, Norton and the Mohawks came from the southwest and started to add pressure there. There was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Norton strategically retreated. It was a good move. And in the meantime, another major general in the morning, Schaeff, I hope I'm pronouncing it, came up with 650 more troops. They came up, lined up here, and the one things the British did really, really well was to fire in volleys, and that's what they started to do. They started to fire in volleys, then one squad would move forward while the other reloaded, they'd fire, they'd leapfrog, etc., etc. And in the meantime, Norton again counterattacked from the west, added pressure to that side, and the Americans, some retreated, some in panic, and a number of them fell down the cliff and seriously injured themselves or died. And when they got there, they found out there weren't any boats anyways, and others retreated calmly and efficiently. So upshot is that the British captured about 950 Americans, many of them injured. The Americans lost about, they say, between 60 and 100 soldiers, and another couple of hundred injured seriously from wounds. The British lost, I think, 18 soldiers, with another 80 injured or something like that. So it was a decisive British victory. And this is where the Americans would have been running up the hill to get to their friends up at the top if they had crossed over from Niagara River. Of course, the monument wasn't there at the time, neither were these handy steps, but you kind of get the picture. So as I had mentioned earlier, while a number of the Americans had crossed over that way to Queenston, a number of them came up this way, landed at the bottom here, and then climbed up this very, very steep escarpment face to get to the battle. And then later on, when they tried to escape, you could see how steep it is. It's not surprising that many fell and were injured and in some cases killed. And so that's basically the story of the Battle of Queenston Heights and General Brock, the great hero. The great hero. Many towns in Ontario have a Brock Street named after them. Brock Parks, Brockville, Ontario, the city was named after him. And then of course there's this monument here where he is buried along with General MacDonald. But here's the thing. General Brock hated Canada. Hated Canada with a passion, and hated the people in it. Both the transplanted British people and the natives. Thought they were all uncivilized savages. Indeed, there's a story that apparently one day in York, the city of York, town of York, what's now Toronto, he was highly offended when a tradesman, either a shop owner or a lawyer or a doctor, had the effrontery to try to engage him in casual conversation. Can you believe it? How dare that person? Didn't he know his place? Anyways, he hated Canada with passion and wanted nothing more than to go to Europe where the civilized wars were being taken place. So, the hero of Canada hated Canada. Is that surprising? That's usually the way history works out. That's it. So here's the statue to Laura Secord, and if you're Canadian, you know the story of Laura Secord. But the thing of it is, people usually get the story wrong. They think that what happened, she lived down at the bottom, down in Queenston. And most people think that when the Battle of Queenston Heights started, she saw the Americans coming over the river in 1812 and ran the 10 kilometers to Fort George on Niagara on the Lake and warned Brock and saved the day. But that's not the story. That's not the truth at all. The reality is that a year later, in 1813, the Americans again came back. Only this time they came across closer to Fort Erie and came their way this way. And again, she heard the sounds and realized there was an issue. Heard from people who were fleeing. So she didn't run to Fort George because that was a waste by that time. Instead, she ran this way. This way. 30 kilometers to about halfway between, I guess, St. Catharines and Hamilton, where there was another fort there, and warned them, and they were able to come down and push the Americans back. So she did a phenomenal, heroic run, 30 kilometers, but it was a year later than where she's normally affiliated with. Well, folks, that's it. And I have to tell you, I am absolutely exhausted, or as our British friends call it, broken. I'm absolutely broken with the humidity and what have you. Sitting in my chair next to Anna. A beautiful breeze is coming from that way, from Lake Ontario, nice and cool, so we're relaxed. We're going to sit and enjoy for another 5 minutes or so. And then I think actually we're going to take a slight detour and visit that fruit stand that we so love, that's got absolutely wonderful, wonderful fruits and vegetables, and then head home. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's a wonderful, wonderful park. We didn't get to see everything that was here because, quite frankly, we're just the humidity has just taken everything from us. But more over that way, more recreational facilities like tennis courts and soccer fields and what have you. So if you're in the area, please come on down. And for our American friends, just over there on the other side of that parking lot, there's a fence, and past that is the Canadian border. So please come on over. We love you despite all of the kerfluffle going on. We love you. Well, one person we don't love, but the rest of you, come on over. Enjoy our hospitality. That's it for now. See you later. Bye.